This video will feature spoilers for Boktai 1 and 2, since the story this time around really relies on the events of previous two games. It's been a direct sequel, so we'll spoil aspects of those games in order to talk about this one. You have been warned. I have reviews of Boktai 1 and 2 on the channel, or go play them right now, although getting emulation, since there is no other official release of the games outside the GBA versions, and they go for eBay prices. First thing to note, Boktai 3 Sabata's Counterattack was only released in Japan, with the method of playing it being via a fan translation, and with the fact that they actually also put their names in the credits of the game as well. That's a nice little thing to add up to the credits. But there is no other way to play this game in English. It's never officially released in English. So putting that note right there before we truly get started. The main premise is that the Dark Clan of Immortals plan to unleash Vanargand on the world. In order to do so, they require Sabata, who immediately gets possessed by them early in the game, and apparently also takes out Django. Like, that's pretty efficient. But Django is rescued by a kid named Trinity, who is a treasure hunter, but also claims to be from the future, where apparently Vanargand already rules the world, and that there is no hope for a good future to ever happen. Right off the bat, I like the fact they give you a gameplay segment of Sabata trying to stop Ratatosk, who's the leader of the Clan of Immortals, from trying to use him as a pawn. So I like that a little bit. But what did I say right off the bat is also the fact that Trinity heavily carries this game's narrative. What I mean is, Trinity is basically the main person you're venturing with. So you have Django and Otenko, but Trinity is a big mouthpiece and really the only other companion you have in this adventure. All of the characters that we met in the previous two games are here, but they solely reside in San Miguel. They don't venture out with Django, and you don't meet them out in the field like in the last game. So Trinity, being this new character, may or may not make or break your experience, considering the fact that he has to do a heavy lifting of the narrative when all things are considered, which can be an issue. Although Django went from having some speaking lines in the last game to basically having full-on speaking role in this game, which, once again, it feels weird to go from silent, speaking a bit, full-on speaking role, but hey, it's a nice way to add more character to Django, although, like I said, I'm calling him Django, but you, the player, can name him whatever you want. It's also interesting that there are 4 different endings you can get in this game, although I will say the requirements to get them I don't really like, and I'll explain more in the gameplay section, because that's what basically impacts what decides what ending you get, but there are multiple endings, there's way more story focus, but I won't say nearly as much as, let's say, Boktai 2, for example. But overall, I do like the narrative, although I don't know why it's called Sabata's Counterattack, because maybe you think that he was going to be like the main villain role of this game, but literally right off the bat, you highlight the fact that something bad has happened to Sabata immediately, so I don't know, maybe I went in with bad expectations. Maybe it's just me. Although I will say that they do try to have little banter with the Immortals you face in this game, but the Immortals don't really get much time to really shine before you immediately defeat them. So I thought like the first game I felt like they had a bit more to them. Although I will say the Count in this game, man, they gave him a lot for this game. They gave him a lot to work with. That man's holding out, and his holding out's pay off with how much screen time he gets in this game. Now for the gameplay, which is a mixture of Boktai 1 and 2. You now have the solar gun back, and can even switch the lens and everything. What happened to the soul device from Boktai 2? It apparently got broken off screen, and honestly I'd say good riddance. So we're back to using elemental lenses when it comes to a solar gun, and the frames this time around are now fully equipable weapons. When they need to swap them out in the menu, you can quick swap them in gameplay if they're equipped, and I don't know if there's a limit to how many weapons you can equip at one time, but I was able to equip like a lot of things to switch through, which I prefer with Boktai 2's limitation, we can only equip like 4 things at a time. But in this game, you also carry over the melee weapons from Boktai 2. Specifically swords and different styles of them that basically, these different styles, basically cover all the ranges. You got the sword swipe, the sword swing, you also got sword swing that does like a hammer effect, and you got sword that basically does a poke like the spear from the last game. So they cover all ranges, even if they all are swords. So there is that last little bit. Although the accessories this time around feel way more limited, and not the fact that like almost all of them have some drawback to them that honestly made them not worth using to me when it comes to accessories. So I don't like about that bit, but it is interesting when it comes to leveling up. They removed the stat allocation specifically for defense increase, and now it's just rely on armor, so it's simpler to buff your defense. Honestly, I never felt underpowered in this game defense-wise. But what Boktai 3 brings to the table is the Coffin bike, which allows you to go to the areas, or the dungeons, via playing this little mini game where you're on a motorcycle trying to avoid getting attacked. And honestly, these Coffin bike segments, they exist. They just exist. They're clearly here to replace actually manually walking to dungeons and everything, which can make the overall world feel blander that now you're just motorcycling all over the place. You don't need to do it once. Granted, there are optional courses you can do to better customize a motorcycle and also get extra rewards, if you so choose so, but when it comes to how the world feels, it feels way smaller in this game, because San Miguel is now just a freaking map they just click on for locales, and even the overworld is entirely omitted from the game because of the Coffin bike, which does feel kinda eh. They also have the ability to buy different coffins as well for different purposes, so that's also gone as well. Another thing they brought to the table is the transform. During parts of the story, Django will gain the ability to either use his vampiric powers or be able to go into a soul form. Honestly, the vampire form is easily way better because I find its tracking for bite attacks way better. The bite attack is also healing you as it works, so it's a way better option. And I just find the soul form just kind of more awkward because its physical big attack requires more timing base, while the vampire form is just more master button, which is easier. But which form you use more will affect which ending you get. There are two main factors to this ending thing, and one of them is which of the two forms you use more. So I'll just say this: you want a better ending, you have to use soul form more than you didn't use dark form. Like I said, I like soul form less, so don't really like that kind of aspect, but that's how you decide what ending you get, partially. Like when it comes to the main gameplay and everything, it honestly feels like not much has changed at all. Like, granted, Boktai 2 with the Soul Device was a drastic change compared to the first game with the lens and frames, but here, the frames feel more limited and everything, because they need to be fully equipped with weapons, so they're not as interesting. You don't have the sub-item feature from the first game either, so you can't use those. You're only using swords that mimic the effects of the melee weapons, but it means they can't really be used to incorporate different puzzles. So it honestly feels like not much has changed. Like, doesn't really bring anything new or different except for transforms, which at best will just allow you to completely shred bosses because of how overpowered they are. So honestly, doesn't really feel like much has changed compared to Boktai 2, and it doesn't really feel like it's really taking the best of both worlds from either game either. So just kind of feels like not much has truly changed. Now for the dungeons. With the dungeons time around, they're back to the shorter or pretty much good length, I would say, of Boktai 1, but they don't have the puzzle variety of Boktai 1. Like, they say have the same puzzle variety of Boktai 2, which, while I will say this game doesn't overuse box puzzles, is the fact that the dungeons don't feel as fun to go through in Boktai 1, but they're also not as long as Boktai 2's dungeons. But, like I said, I don't really have a lot to say about the dungeons. Kind of exist. They're good dungeons, and there is one dungeon I like that's pirate ship themed. We're going through pirate ships trying to find a suitable vessel to use, and that dungeon is a pretty cool idea and everything, and I like that. And also the fact that the final dungeon actually does have some cool puzzle gimmicks, but it makes me question why they wait till the final dungeon to pretty much start doing something new with cool puzzles rather than doing it in the earlier dungeons, you know? But dungeon-wise, like I said, this game feels like it's trying to mix Boktai 1 and 2 together, but it's not taking the best aspects of either game, really. Like, it's taking some aspects, combining it, but they're not taking the best aspects from them, which just feel weird. Like, Boktai 2's bosses, I liked a lot more than Boktai 1's bosses, but freaking Boktai 1 had way better dungeons, but they don't really combine them really here. Granted, like I said, when it comes to some bosses, you can just immediately obliterate because of the transform, so maybe they didn't focus that more hard on them. I will say, something that irritates me is that every mid-boss, every single mini-boss is the exact same giant armor, just with a different element every time. And it is so boring, and then they make you fight the thing again. Like, each element again. And it's like, stuff like this makes me wonder, did Boktai 3 have like some rushed development, like some rushed deadline? Because on top of the lack of the overworld, on top of the shorter dungeons that don't have anything interesting in them, it feels like stuff is just being removed. There's also no post-game as well. You go immediately to New Game Plus, so it feels like it's just missing stuff, but there's nothing new to compensate for it. On top of the fact that, like I said in the story section, Trinity has to basically carry this narrative on his shoulders because the other characters don't participate in the journey, so it's just Django, Tenko, and Trinity. Another thing that makes me think this game is rushed, that there's one dungeon after purifying the Immortal, you then have to go back through the dungeon and they make you walk through it again. And that makes me feel like, okay, now it's just straight up padding. And it's like, what the hell is going on here? We removed so much stuff, and now we have padding in this entry, and it just feels ridiculous. But speaking of Purifying Immortals, the boss counter for Purifying Immortals is the same as Boktai 2. There's no actual difference. Which, once again, highlights the fact that it feels like Boktai 3 doesn't really add much of new, and just heavily focuses on Trinity, who I do like as a character. I do like the narrative they're going for, but I wish there was news add in here, and the transforms don't really do much, especially since I also say them for boss fights, because, well, I want to be OP in a regular encounter. Overall, I like Boktai 3 Sabata's Counterattack, but it doesn't feel as enjoyable as Boktai 1 with simplicity, and it doesn't feel as grand or experimental as Boktai 2 Summer Boy Django. It tries to mix the two games, but doesn't really take the best aspects from them, so it ends up creating a game that just feels stagnant overall. So I said, like, I feel like, was this game rushed? Or something I'm missing? Like, why is stuff removed? Why is there nothing to take its place? Boktai 2 tried so hard to do something new, and while some things didn't really work in the end, Boktai 3 feels like it just takes those and doesn't really add much to them. It changes some things, like the Solar Smith system that requires you to combine a weapon and accessory as opposed to combining two weapons together, which does feel weird. It feels like it makes it more difficult to really understand what exactly the weapon's being upgraded. Also, the fact that the weapon shop no longer carries more weapons. Like, I swear the default weapon layout the weapon shop had was all I had of the entire game and nothing else. So, it feels like not much has really changed. So, what's not really changed, you can just compare it to Boktai 1 and 2. When I compare it, it's like, I mean, it's better than Boktai 2, but I don't know, I respect Boktai 2 because it experimented more. Boktai 1 has the best simplicity, but they're just more enjoyable in that game, and it just doesn't really take the best aspects from them. So honestly, just feels too similar, but not much new. Like, honestly, I don't know if this is the case, but it feels like a situation that reminds like Mega Man Battle Network 6, where that game was designed to try and be like the start of something new, only to get told that, hey, we're gonna now go to the DS era, do something different. So the new stuff to be thrown out, because look at like Django's sprite in this game. Like, it looks higher detail, it looks quite nice, better than the first 2 games. So it feels like they're trying to make stuff to like build more properly for the entry, but just like Battle Network 6, which I go into straight into Mega Man Star Force, which is completely different. You then got Lunar Knights / Boktai DS, which feels like it's gonna, which from memory and from a little bit I've played already, from trying to review video, basically does what Boktai 3 so far tries to do, but better, and more trying to be grander, but more fleshing out mechanics of Boktai 2. So it just feels weird. Boktai 3 just feels weird. It just feels like more of the same. So that's all we gotta say about Boktai 3. Still a good game. Heavily glad it got fan translated. I much appreciate it to the fan translators. If I haven't already, I'll make sure to once again put their names up on screen, because they've put their names for the credits. So, because those people are awesome for fan translating Boktai 3. So, that is super cool. But once again, this feels good game. Wish it did more. That's all I gotta say about Boktai 3 Sabata's Counterattack. Good day.